Now we're going to talk to Mama Bunny. And she asks, what is your name? And my options are, yes, my name is Bogwater. And if I go ahead and click that, she goes on to the next one. Thank you, Bogwater. He is lost in the woods. By the way, I see your level is 1 and you have 10 gems. So it successfully inserted all of the variables that we have implemented into the dialogue. Okay, we are going to learn how to do that today. And by that, I mean, welcome back to LewyT Amusement Academy Part 28. I was going to call this Part 13.1 because it is an enhancement of the dialogue system, which was introduced in Part 13. However, some of the changes we will implement today require some code and game elements from much more recent videos. So the idea is that you can use variables in dialogue. So you can include your player character's name, even if it's customized by the player, and maybe some other stuff like your level or how many gems you are carrying, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and start with the code, my favorite part. So this time we only have 2 scripts to change, and in Player Manager there's only one very small change, and that is this new method, and it's just a method for returning the number of gems, so that from the Dialogue Manager we can call gems on the Player Manager and find out how many gems we got. Okay, this is the Dialogue Manager. There is one new using statement for collections.generic. That is, we're going to be using something called a dictionary later. We'll talk to you about that. I'm going to expand this. We have 2 new properties. They're not public, they're private serialized field properties, and they are the player character and the player manager. This is just references, so we can then get information from those scripts. In the start method, we're going to populate those variables by, the player character. We have to just find the first object by type of player character, which there should only be one in the game active at any given time. And player manager is a singleton player manager instance. And then here's our main method that we're adding. It's called processDialogue. It takes in a string. We're just calling it raw text. Before we even do anything else, we're just checking to see if any of these variables are null: player character, player manager, or quest manager. And if they are, we're going to call the start method, and that's basically this method we just looked at. It's going to populate those variables. We do this just in case somehow. Well, here's the deal. The Dialogue Manager is disabled on start, at least in the way we've set it up here. And the first time you enter dialogue, it opens the Dialogue Manager and it will run the start method, but it may also be trying to process dialogue immediately before it has a chance to do this. So that's why we're going to run it manually here. The next line, first we're just going to check to see if any raw text was passed, and if it's not, if it's null or empty, like just a blank string, then we're just going to return it back because there's nothing to replace. And then we're going to create a new string variable called processText, which is going to start off as raw text, and then we're going to create a dictionary. So here's what I was talking to you about a little bit earlier. We have a new kind of collection called a dictionary, and I don't remember if I've ever talked about this before, so we're going to do it now. A dictionary is like a list, but instead of just a list of single objects, it's a list of pairs of strings. And you can make different kinds of dictionaries, but a string is pretty common, and it means that it's a key value pair, and the key is a string and the value is a string. And here's what it looks like. So we're basically giving its default values right at the beginning. First element, key, is name inside curly braces. It's just a string. And then we're going to get the name from the text box on the player character menu, and we're going to reference the text value. But there's a chance, in fact, there's a very good chance that the player has not filled it out. So that text is actually a blank string or null or something like that. And this method, string.isNull or white space, will check that. And if it's not null or white space, it will use it. But if it is, then it will go and get the placeholder value from that same field. So the placeholder is what we put into our, let's go look at it. So we're looking at the player character menu. Here is the name field where it says cute slime. That's actually the placeholder text. So if the user tries to type in there, they just start typing and it will replace it with whatever they type. So that is what a placeholder is. Now we're back. So that's just the first element of this dictionary, the name variable. And we can also do a level variable, and we're just getting it from the player character.level. And the gems variable is getting it from the PlayerManager.gems. That's that new method we added to Player Manager. And we'd toString both of these because they are numbers, not strings, and we need it to be a string because it's going to be text and dialogue. Okay. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about why I decided just these 3 variables. The comment that requested this video gave an example of like gyms or deaths or the player name. So we're not actually tracking deaths, but we have the name and gyms, and so I just threw in level to round it out to 3. And then the idea is that you would go ahead and add to this list for your own game, whatever the kinds of things that you would want to insert into dialogue that you don't want to actually hard code into each of those. You would just reference them by the string, name, level, gyms, etc. Okay, so once we've built this dictionary, this is just a variable. We're going to then for each through each of them, and then this is what each element of the dictionary looks like. It's a key value pair, string, and we're going to call it entry. And we're going to say if the process text contains the entry.key, that's the first string, then we'll say then process text equals process text dot replace entry.key with entry.value. And it basically does it for all the variables. And then once we've done that, our process text will have been modified and we will return that back to the calling method. And so here's the first place we call it. In display node, this is when we actually display a page of dialogue on the screen. The first thing we're doing is what we were doing before is we're setting the dialog text.text, and that's the actual text of the TextMesh Pro object that contains the NPC's text. It's being replaced by the node's NPC text. And all we're changing is we're going to process that. So if that text contains any of these special variables, they will be replaced with their corresponding values. And then everything else stays the same until, well, I removed a couple comments, but the next significant change is we're also doing it for the buttons that are options. So you can include your variables in the option selections for what your player will say to the NPC. So we're taking this button object that we've referenced. We're drilling down to the TextMesh Pro text value. We're going to set that equal to processDialogue choices.response text. And so as you can see, it's very similar to what we did before. We're just adding this processDialogue. Okay, that's everything in the scripting. Okay, but we're not done yet. We now need to actually use these variables in our dialogue. So let's see, we've got our dialogue nodes in the NPC folder under dialogue. And I'm just going to grab Mama Bunny A0. And this is the one where Mama Bunny says, "Hi, can you find my friend Mr. Hermit?" And I'm just adding something to it. I'm going to say, "By the way, what is your name?" Question mark. And in the responses, I'm going to say yes, and my name is, and then we're going to put these curly braces, say name, and close curly brace, and that will indicate that we're wanting you to use our character's name. And by default, it'll be cute slime because if we don't add our own name. Okay, and then we're going to go to Mama Bunny A1 and add some stuff in here. Thank you, name, comma. He is lost in the woods. By the way, I see your level is level, and you have gyms. Yeah, kind of a weird conversation, but just to demonstrate the ability to use these variables in our dialogue. Okay, before we do anything, I'm going to move my character down here so that he doesn't have to walk too far to get to Mama Bunny. Okay, let's see if it works. Here we are. One of those is Mama Bunny, the big one. I'm going to go talk to her. Okay. He says, "Hi, can you find my friend Mr. Hermit? By the way, what is your name?" And our options are, yes, my name is Cute Slime. Okay, so I'm just hit no for now. I'm going to get back up away from them, and I'm not going to change the name of the character. We're going to call him Bogwater. And close. Now you see my inventory is open. That's because R opens the inventory, and I have not set up everything the best possible way to prevent that. So now we're going to talk to Mama Bunny. And she asks, "What is your name?" And my options are, yes, my name is Bogwater. And if I go ahead and click that, she goes on to the next one. "Thank you, Bogwater. He is lost in the woods. By the way, I see your level is 1 and you have 10 gems. So it successfully inserted all of the variables that we have implemented into the dialogue. That's all there is to it. Okay, thank you for watching LewyT Amusement Academy Part 28. I'm LewyT, and this is LewyT Game Lab. If you learned something down here in my lab today, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this knowledge with your friends, frenemies, enemies, and even your nemesis. Next time in LewyT Amusement Academy Part 29, we will implement some skills like projectile splash and poison damage. I know I said that I would do that in Part 28, but that was when I was planning on calling this one Part 13.1. But that changed, so Part 29 will be next.